Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tawanantoinette. Today we're going to talk a little bit about a topic based in astrology, but it's a very important topic. I've been meaning to record this video for a while, but I just have not, I guess one, had the time to, and two, I never felt like I was ready to record it yet because I'm currently going through my Saturn return. And so I finally felt like I'm at a place where I'm competent enough and have had enough life experience to speak on this topic, which is generally what I like to use as my own personal code of ethics as I discover more topics in spirituality. So the Saturn return, let's talk about Saturn before we go into the Saturn return and what that is. So Saturn is the planet of discipline. It is a planet that is focused around or brings themes of restriction. It brings themes of parameters. It brings themes of, did I say discipline? If I didn't say discipline, discipline. It brings themes of kind of like, they call it a daddy planet, or Saturn is daddy, because it's such an authoritative energy that it reminds you of a father figure. Not always having the most pleasant experiences, but it's there to teach you a lesson, kind of like your dad does. It's basically the planet that influences restriction. If you are someone who knows about astrology, we can compare it to Jupiter, which is more of a planet of expansion and things opening up, luck, fortune, things like that, growing. Saturn is more of restriction. It kind of restricts you so you can get serious. So with that said, to speak more about the Saturn return, it's usually a period where Saturn returns to the exact place it was in your birth chart when you were born, at the same sign. So Saturn returns in the same sign, in the same house, at the same exact degree it was when you were born. So because Saturn revolves around the sun every 30 years, so that's why the Saturn return usually happens at around ages 27, 28, 29, 30. It lasts for a period of 3 years, and it is marked by feelings of feeling restricted in whatever area of your chart it falls into. I'll get into the examples of that later, but basically, Saturn comes around when you are in that mid-range of transitioning to your 30s to kind of get you more serious for that next phase of life. Regularly, we really think in this society, I guess people are deemed to be adults when they are 18 or 21. However, in astrology and according to Saturn, we really don't step into that version of ourselves, of our full-grown adult selves, until we get to that 30 mark and transition into the 30s. So that's what the Saturn return is. Now, how you feel in the Saturn return and what is happening is teaching you specific lessons and kind of forcing maturation in a specific area of your life. So, for example, a Saturn placement in the second house is showing you how you can mature in terms of your finances, self-worth, self-value, because that's what the second house rules. The second house is also ruled by Taurus. Taurus rules earth, value, possessions, things like that. So Saturn in that placement is really teaching you how to mature in your finances, to really be able to make finances work for yourself, to be able to have that independence in your finances. Let's just say you've been always a responsible person with money, or you have certain issues. It's basically your experience in your Saturn return is going to be based on how good, how disciplined you are, how mature you are, how well you are handling that area of your life in this specific scenario of finances. So if you're always doing great with your finances, the Saturn return period won't be as difficult for you, especially if you know what the Saturn return is. You know when it's happening, you're aware of the energies and how to maximize that. But let's just say you've been terribly undisciplined with your money, or you're in a lot of debt, or you don't really pay attention to things like budgeting, money management, then Saturn is going to really have some tough lessons for you, because that's the intention. The intention is to teach you to get better in those 3 years. So in your 30s, you are kind of like prepared, you're ready now, you're in a next phase, and you are a little bit more mature, so you're able to handle that next phase of life. Now, Saturn can fall into whatever house in your chart. I would love for you guys to actually comment the houses that Saturn falls into in the comments. And so I will respond to each of those and kind of tell you what you can expect from your Saturn placement. That's something that we can do to just kind of learn more under this video in our own little community. So if you comment down below, I'll be responding to those comments. But Saturn falls in a house, but it also is in a specific sign. So Saturn is, let's just say, let's talk about the Saturn in Aquarius placement right now, since Saturn is currently in Aquarius. It was in Pisces briefly previously, but it is back now in Aquarius. So Saturn in Aquarius is going to be basically influencing how you are on a collective level. So lessons in collective healing, sharing your lessons with your community, not working alone. There are lessons in the sign as well. So you look at the specific sign that Saturn is in, and it kind of tells you a little bit more about that placement as well. So the house is really what area of your life it's going to affect. The planet is telling you the energy, and the sign, I would say, is telling you how that energy is working. Because the sign, you see the characteristics of, let's just say, Aquarius, and then you apply it to Saturn, and that's kind of how you interpret that placement. But comment down below. I definitely would love to help you guys to break down some of those meanings of what it can mean for you in your personal natal chart. Now, some of the things you can expect in your Saturn return, these are usually the years where people have realizations that they have not been living their authentic lives, or they have not been fulfilled in certain ways. So there are lots of things that usually happen: career changes, friendship changes, lots of significant journeys across the world. So like relocation, moving, some people, that career changes, I said that already, but this is a major theme for Saturn returns, changing your career, because a lot of people realize now that they're not living for the satisfaction of their community and their parents and their partner and whatever. So Saturn is really forcing them to accept that you have to take responsibility for yourself, and as such, go do the career that you actually want to do. Go do the things that you actually want to do. Go be the things that you actually want to be. So Saturn is really just forcing you to level up, kind of like in a tough love kind of way, but it is a loving way. So in the years of the Saturn return, we're encouraged to explore and fail a lot, because we are in a period of discovery, finding what works, finding what does not work for us. It's kind of like we're maturing so much, but experience in these years are invaluable, because these are the years to really make the mistakes so that we can be ready in the 30s to incorporate from whatever lessons that we have learned from the mistakes that we have previously made. In other areas of life, Saturn returns are discussed. There's a particular psychologist that talks about the Saturn return, but calls it something else. A psychologist called Jeffrey Arnett coined the term emerging adulthood to describe this transitionary period to the 30s. So there are different areas of study that take into account the Saturn return. However, this is astrology's personal explanation of what happens in that transitionary period based on the celestial bodies and how they influence us. The Saturn return takes place every 30 years. So really, it's happening in the period where we are transitioning to 30, and then it's happening again between the ages of 59, 60. And then again, if you live that long, 30 years afterwards. And so I feel like it's really just a period to get you ready for the next level. Saturn in Aquarius is going to, this placement is going to last until I think March of 2023. And so for the people who were born in the 90s, I think specifically 92, 93, 94, I think those people are gonna have some heavy restrictions in whatever area Saturn falls in the chart, in their personal chart until then. So it's really nothing to fear. I know before my Saturn return, I had a lot more fears of, oh my God, what's gonna happen? Am I gonna lose whatever? It's really not, it's nothing to fear once you know what it is. I feel like you are very empowered because you know what is to happen, what you're supposed to do, things you're supposed to embrace in this period. I know, for example, so many people have gone through Saturn returns without even knowing what it was, and so they felt doom and gloom around the period. But if you know exactly what's supposed to happen and you have that awareness, then it kind of prepares you. Someone that comes to mind is Gwen Stefani. I remember when she was around the age of 29 and she was amassing so much success and all of that good stuff. I think she even has an album, her fourth album or something, that talks about the Saturn return, but it's well known that she was going through a crisis, a self-identity crisis, because she had gotten all this success, but for some reason it was not resonating with her on a deeper level. And so it was affecting her in her happiness, her general moods, and things like that. There are a lot of other people, everyone goes through their Saturn return because Saturn is in everyone's chart. It's just knowing where it falls, and so you'll know how it will influence you. So a few things to consider when Saturn returns to the exact place in your birth chart, where it was when you were born, are what are some things that I would like to take with me in this new phase of life? Are there certain things that I want to release as baggage before I step into this next phase? How are some ways that I can mature or maximize my experience in whatever area of my life by putting in a little bit more discipline, a little bit more focus, a little bit more restriction? What can I sacrifice now to gain more in the long term? What are some things that are worth the sacrifice because they're just not serving me anymore? So those are just some energies for, or some thought-provoking things that come up as themes in the Saturn return that can really help you to navigate that period in time. I think if you look at it in the way that this period is really for me instead of it happening to me, then it really, really helps your whole journey through that process. Now, something else about the Saturn return is that it is based on also other aspects that are happening in your chart at that time. So let's just say, yes, you are going through your Saturn return, but Saturn is in a square with something. It's going to be influenced by the other aspects of what's happening in your chart in totality. But in general, you'll get a general theme of restrictions if you look at the placement, the house that it's in, the sign that it's in. So Saturn is in the first house is going to pose restrictions and limitations on self-identity, your personality, how you show up in the world, probably even your physical appearance. You may go through drastic changes in that in those years of your Saturn return. Second house, it's going to be money, finances. We spoke about that before. Your self-worth, how you are handling your money, debt, mostly the money that belongs to you, because the eighth house is where you talk about other people's money, but it rules lending, borrowing, things like that. So themes of that nature may come up for you in terms of limitation when you are having a Saturn return in the second house. In the third house, Saturn restricts early developmental themes. So things like siblings, sibling relationships, thinking, analysis, things of that nature can even affect journeys, so trips, short journeys, possibly not having the ability to travel, possibly having themes come up with you on short journeys that pose lessons for you to integrate, or just like mishaps happening on short journeys in the third house. In the fourth house, Saturn affects roots. The fourth house talks about the nucleus, the family environment. So having restrictions posed around family. The fourth house also talks about the relationship that you have with your parents, especially your mom. So themes of that relationship being highlighted in your years of your Saturn return, but really mostly it's focused on your home environment and family surroundings. So probably going through lessons with family members, certain restrictions coming up for you to learn more about navigating family and what that means for you personally, possibly even putting in boundaries in place. Many people will experience this in different ways, so it's according to you and your own life experience. However, it is based and centered around the family or the roots of a person. Fifth house, Saturn placement, talks about creativity, maturing creatively, maturing children, because the fifth house rules children as well. It even rules romance and dating. So having different experiences in your romantic life, in your Saturn return, if your Saturn is in your fifth house. Also having significant lessons revolving around children, if you have children or are around children. In those 3 years that Saturn is returning to that place in your chart. A Saturn placement in the sixth house rules things like your work life, your service to other people, your health, and general well-being. Saturn in this specific house can show up as limitations to the profession that you're in and the services that you give to other people, or even health challenges, because the sixth house does rule health, sickness. It can also rule the things that you do in terms of your daily habits and your daily work habits specifically, and how that may need to be basically fine-tuned for you to develop some kind of discipline over a period of time that serves your work life and serves you, like basically finding a work ritual and a work routine that works for you, but also makes sure that it's meeting all of your needs. So yeah, just lessons around that. Like, yes, you may prefer to work 3 days a week, but does that give you the income that you need? Like finding whatever work limitations that are popping up so that it can teach you how to be more responsible and to mature in that specific area. The seventh house rules partnerships, marriage, and as it is opposite to the first house, the first house is how you appear to others. But the seventh house is how you fit into the world of others. So in relation to someone else. So themes of of Saturn in the seventh house and having your Saturn return in those years, themes of lessons in marriage and in different relationships may come up to you. More so long-term relationships, long-term partnerships. I would say though, this is more of in an intimate way. It could be even long-term relationships in other areas, meaning long-term, let's just say you're not married, but you're in a long-term commitment. So really in relation to that, like your long-term commitment to your partner. So themes of different relationship themes may come up during those years, kind of showing you what is not working for you, and kind of directing you to aligning to what will work for you when you're dealing with other people. In the eighth house, this is an interesting place. This is an interesting Saturn placement because the eighth house is often known as a kind of like the most difficult house, because you kind of don't know how certain things are going to play out, since it deals with such vague themes like sexuality, rebirth, death, transformation, things of that nature. So really, Saturn can incorporate many different lessons in many different ways surrounding those themes of having to transition, like going through a death and a rebirth, to going through dark nights of the souls over and over. Things surrounding your sexuality may come up if you have an eighth house Saturn placement. Things around sex and how you use sex in relation to other people may come up. Things like your partner's resources and how you use that, access to that may come up as a theme. And yeah, just general things around those. Ninth house talks about philosophy, learning, travel, things like that, higher education. So Saturn in this specific house is maturing you in this way. Where have you lived all of your life? Could it possibly be helpful for you to go out, see other things, learn from other people, from different cultures, different races? Do you have lessons that you need to integrate around that? Saturn will be helping you to mature in your broader perspective of life in this placement. The 10th house talks about your public life, authority, your career. So Saturn in this placement is maturing you directly in the areas of your career. It's challenging you to grow up, probably even align with a career that works for you. It's challenging you to work on your public image, how you look in front of other people in relation to your career. It's challenging you on authority figures, so you may even encounter different authority figures that you can incorporate lessons from based on how you interact with them. The 11th house rules groups, friendships, how we show up in groups around us. So Saturn in this placement is teaching you a lot about groups that you want to align with. You'll find a lot of your lessons and general restrictions are centered around group activities and group environments, because that's where you need to learn and grow up and incorporate some kind of lesson as a theme over the 3 years. So whether that be you are encountering how to navigate spaces with people, how to work and collaborate in groups, possibly even experiencing friendship shifts, possibly realigning with different groups. It's just centered around your dynamics with other people, but less in a 7th house aspect where that's like a relationship with an intimate partner, and more of like a friendship aspect in the people who you're friends and acquaintances with. Saturn in the 12th house is very interesting because the 12th house rules the subconscious mind. So it's a very imaginative, very spiritual, very intuitive period of your life. You can tap into that intuition to grow and transform in different areas. So like, for example, an artist who has a Saturn placement in the 12th house uses those 3 years to really access some subconscious things that have not really come to the forefront, so that they can integrate that and perhaps even channel that and use that for their art. So it's a very intuitive spiritual placement. However, it's going to be based a lot on the aspects of what's going on too in your Saturn return years to see how it affects you. So yeah, that's a brief brief explanation on Saturn in the houses. Of course, we can get a lot more detailed. Comment down below where Saturn is in your chart, the house and the sign, so that we can talk about that together. And really, I think my experience of my Saturn return so far and what it has taught me is really that there is nothing to fear, because there is a lot of literature out there and a lot of people who speak on Saturn returns in a way that I personally find disempowering, because I really feel like if you are looking into something from the lens of fear, that's already self-defeat. So to reframe that narrative, I like to look at it in, okay, realistically, what is the energy of Saturn and what can I expect? And in that way, looking at it in that way, I find it very empowering, because then you can use that energy to help you navigate whatever crisis comes up or whatever restriction comes up in those years that you do have the Saturn return. So that's all for me. Let me know your questions down below. Let me know if you are currently going through your Saturn return. What are some things that you find popping up for you in terms of limitations, in terms of maturing? Tell me if you guys have had any career changes, friendship changes, family dynamic changes, just any hard lessons in maturing. And I will see you guys in the next video. Remember to like this video if it helped you in any way. Subscribe to my channel so you know when new readings are out and new general videos based on astrology or psychology. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye.